In 2026, AI isn't a trend you follow anymore. It is. Well, it's the infrastructure of work, just like the internet.
Right.
You don't really use AI. You either work with it or you start to feel slower, more confused, and you might not even know why.
And that's the reality check, isn't it? We are so far past the cool demo phase. Now it's purely about, well, survival.
Welcome back to the deep dive. It's January 23rd, 2026. And I've been sitting with this idea all morning, just how quiet the revolution has become. The noise has died down, the headlines are a little less frantic, but the integration, I mean, it's everywhere. It's in the browser, the OS, the code editors.
It's just there.
So today, we're unpacking this really fascinating piece of research. It's called the 2026 AI Skill Stack. And it's basically a survival guide for the modern economy.
It really is. And our mission here is, I think, critical. We're going to look at the actual skills you need to thrive in this new landscape. We are not interested in the hype. We want the specific tactical abilities that separate the people who are overwhelmed by AI from the people who are, directing it. Because that gap, it is getting wider every single day.
So we're going to build this stack then, layer by layer, almost like a pyramid of competence.
We start at the foundation, why that magic mental model is hurting you, and the real art of prompting. Then we'll move to tool literacy.
Why you should stop collecting apps.
Yes. Then workflows, agents, and finally, the real frontier, open source, and this thing called vibe coding.
Vibe coding. I honestly still can't believe that became an industry term.
But it did.
We'll get there. Let's start at the bottom. The foundation. The source makes a really strong point right out of the gate about our mental model.
Yeah.
It argues that most of the frustration, that feeling when the AI just gives you garbage, comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of what generative AI even is.
This is the biggest hurdle for people. We still treat it like a magic 8-ball or, a super smart human. But the mental model you need is that it's a prediction engine.
A prediction engine.
All it does is predict the next best output based on patterns it's seen in text, images, audio. It does not think. It does not know truth.
So when it hallucinates, it's not lying to you, it's just completing a pattern incorrectly.
It's just probabilistic math. I mean, it's incredible at summarizing, rewriting, transforming because it has seen those patterns a billion times.
Right.
But it cannot understand real-world context on its own. It has no judgment. So if you treat it like a human colleague who just gets what you mean, you're going to get mediocre results.
But if you treat it like a probabilistic engine that needs strict constraints,
you get magic.
And that leads us right to the first skill in the stack, prompting. We've been hearing about prompt engineering for years, but the source frames it a bit differently. It calls it a thinking skill, not a writing trick.
And that distinction really matters. Prompting is like swinging the sword. If your input is vague, write me a report. The output is vague because the AI is just guessing at the most likely pattern.
Clear thinking, clear outputs.
Exactly. And the source suggests 2 specific frameworks to help force that clarity.
Let's unpack those. I think people get kind of paralyzed trying to remember the perfect magic words. What's the first framework?
The first one is for structure. It's for when you need accurate, really usable outputs like reports, summaries, code. The acronym they use is TCREI.
TCREI.
Okay. Task, context, references, evaluate, and iterate.
Walk me through the logic there.
So, task. What exactly do you want done? Context. Why do you need it? This part is crucial. Telling the AI the why helps it narrow down all the probabilities.
Wow, okay.
Then references, give it examples of the style or the constraints you want, and then critically evaluate and iterate. You don't just take the first result, you fix it, you refine it.
So instead of a weak swing like summarize this article, it's more like summarize this article for a non-technical manager. That's the context. Focusing on the financial risks and keep it under 200 words.
You've just massively narrowed the search space for the model. Now, the second framework is better for creative work or teaching. It's RAMEN.
RAMEN. Role, audience, mission. It sounds like something at a theater.
It is. You're basically casting the AI. Act as a product manager. That's the role. Explain this feature to a sales team. That's your audience.
I see.
The goal is clarity, not technical depth. That's the mission. And then use simple language. Those are the notes. When you structure it like that, the AI stops guessing the vibe and it starts executing the specific persona you gave it.
I have to make a vulnerable admission here. I still wrestle with what the source calls prompt drift.
We all do.
I'll be working with a model, and the outputs just start getting worse or weird, and I get frustrated at the tool. I start thinking, this model got stupider overnight.
Right.
But looking at this, I realize it's usually me. I've just gotten lazy with the constraints. I stopped swinging the sword properly.
It's the illusion of understanding. We think the AI gets us because it got it right the first time, so we stop being so specific. But it doesn't get you, it just predicts tokens.
So if prompting is the foundation, what happens when you actually get it right?
Hallucinations drop, outputs improve, and your speed just skyrockets.
Which brings us to the next layer of the stack, tools. The source is pretty harsh here. It really critiques the tool collectors.
It calls it a productivity trap. You know, people subscribe to 10 different services, an image generator, a text summarizer, a video maker, and they think they have leverage.
They just have subscriptions.
They just have a big credit card bill. The source argues you only need to understand 4 functional categories. If you know the category, the specific brand doesn't really matter.
Categories over collections. I like that. So what's the first category?
The general chatbot. This is your operating system. Whether it's Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever's dominant, the mistake people make is treating it like a search bar.
Ask a question, get an answer, close the tab.
Right. The real skill is holding context. Treat it like a continuous working session. Here's what we're doing today. Here is the background material. You keep that thread alive, and it actually becomes like a second brain.
I've started doing this. It's less like Googling and more like turning to a colleague in the room and saying, okay, let's hash this out.
That's the shift. Okay, second category, research. Tools like Perplexity. But again, the skill isn't just searching, it's asking for friction.
Friction, what do you mean?
Don't just ask for an explanation. Ask for disagreements. Ask, what are the risks of this approach? You want the AI to synthesize conflicting views, not just list out a bunch of links.
That is a great point. Using AI to find the counter-argument is something I don't think most people do. They just want confirmation. What about the third category?
The learning accelerator. This is what you could call the meta skill. Using AI as a personal tutor. Instead of explain machine learning, you say, teach me machine learning as if I have absolutely no background. Now break it into a 2-week learning path for me.
So you're not cheating, you're just accelerating the uptake of new info.
Exactly. And the final one is execution, moving from a concept to an actual output.
So tools like Gamma for slides or Notion for documents.
Right. And the habit shift here is, don't just stop at the idea. Ask, what is the deliverable? Force the AI to create the first draft, the deck, the dashboard. It might be rough, but it is so much easier to edit a bad draft than to stare at a blank page.
So what is the main habit shift required here?
Stop treating AI as a separate app. Make it your operating system.
That segues perfectly into workflow. Because even if you have all the tools, if you're using them wrong, you're just adding noise.
Yeah.
The source talks about context switching as the silent killer.
It just drains your battery. You're in a document, then you tab over to a chatbot, you copy paste, you tab back, you check an email. Every single switch costs you cognitive energy.
Yeah.
The skill of workflow integration is all about keeping the AI inside the work you're already doing.
This is where browser integration comes in.
Yeah.
Right? And we're not just talking about some little plugin.
No, by 2026, AI is native to the browser. You're reading a dense financial report. You don't copy the text to a bot. You just highlight it and ask the browser assistant right there on the page, explain this chart to me.
Or you're in an email thread that's 40 messages deep.
And you just ask the assistant, summarize the key decisions and tell me if I have any action items.
It's removing the friction of movement. It lets you stay in that flow state.
And it extends to decision support, too. Using AI as a check. You're reading a claim in an article, you highlight it and ask the AI, is this widely accepted? What's the source on that?
You use it to compare prices, lay out trade-offs.
Right. You're using AI as a decision assistant, not the decision maker. You keep the agency, but you outsource the grunt work of verification.
How does this change the daily grind?
It removes friction and keeps you in the flow state.
Now, before we get to the really futuristic stuff agents and vibe coding, let's take a quick pause. We'll be right back.
We are back. We've covered the foundation and the tools. Now we need to talk about the shift that really defines 2026. Agents.
This is the big leap. I mean, up until now, we've been talking about tools that wait for you. You type, it types back.
Right.
An agent is different. An agent is autonomous. It receives an input, it decides what to do, it takes an action, and then it reports back to you.
So it's the difference between a hammer and a carpenter. A hammer just sits there until I swing it. A carpenter looks at the plans and builds the wall.
A carpenter who follows a very, very specific set of instructions, yes. The skill here isn't prompt writing anymore. It's system thinking.
System thinking.
You have to map out the entire flow. What inputs does the agent get? What decisions is it allowed to make? And when does it need to scream for a human?
The source gives some great corporate use cases.
Yeah.
Customer retention, for instance.
This is a classic example. So imagine a retention agent. It monitors unsubscribe requests from your customers. That's the trigger.
Okay.
It then analyzes why the customer is leaving based on their entire history with you. Then, and here's the agent part, it autonomously constructs a personalized offer to keep them, sends it, and tracks the result. No human typed that email.
And reporting agents, I assume, are a similar idea.
Same idea. An agent pulls data from your internal SQL database, formats it into a PDF, writes a summary of any anomalies it finds, and emails it to the whole team every Monday morning. It saves hours of manual drudgery.
Wow.
Just stop and think about the scale for a second. Imagine that retention agent. It isn't just handling one person. It can handle 10,000 unique customer issues simultaneously.
10,000.
Each one getting a personalized, reasoned response, deciding on offers, negotiating, without a human ever touching a keyboard. Whoa! I mean, just imagine scaling that level of personalized attention.
It's almost overwhelming to think about, but it also highlights why system thinking is the real skill. You're not writing the email, you're designing the machine that writes all the emails.
That is the shift. And if you set that agent up wrong, you've just automated a disaster at massive scale.
So what are companies actually hiring for regarding agents?
People who can safely plug AI into real operations.
Safely. That's the operative word. Okay, look to the final piece of the stack. The source calls this the unexpected shift. Open source and vibe coding.
This is where the geopolitical and the technical kind of collide. In 2026, open source AI, these are models you can run yourself, inspect, modify it, has just exploded. And interestingly, a lot of that momentum is being led by China. DeepSeek V4.AI, Alibaba.
Why does the origin matter to the average person listening to this?
It matters because of cost and control. If you're building a business, do you want to pay a tax to a big U.S. tech giant for every single API call?
Whoa.
Or do you want to run a model that's 99% as good for a fraction of the cost on your own private server? Open source means no vendor lock-in. It's huge for privacy.
And this connects to vibe coding. I promise we'd come back to this. It sounds like something a teenager would say on TikTok, but the source treats it as a serious technical paradigm.
It's the best term for it, really. Look, traditionally, to build software, you needed to know syntax. Python, JavaScript, all the brackets and semicolons.
Right.
Vibe coding says, natural language is the new syntax.
So you just describe the vibe of the app you want.
Essentially, yes. You describe the goal. I want a dashboard that tracks my freelance invoices. Then you break it down, logic by logic. It needs a button to add a new PDF. It needs a chart for my monthly income.
Okay.
You ask the tool like Bubble or one of these specialized AI coding agents to build it. Then you just iterate. Make that button blue. Hey, fix the logic on the tax calculation.
So the barrier isn't knowing how to code anymore.
No, the barrier is knowing what you want. It's pure logic. If you can describe the flow of data clearly, you can build software. It turns everyone into a product manager who can also ship the product.
I have to ask, what about actual developers? Are they out of a job?
Not at all. But their job changes. They're not writing boilerplate code anymore. They become the architects.
I see.
They use AI to handle the grunt work, the syntax, the debugging. They focus on the really complex logic, the security, the scalability. It actually accelerates learning. You can jump into a new language and have the AI explain it to you as you go.
So what is the barrier to building software now?
Only your ability to describe logic and flows clearly.
It's incredible. We've gone from how to write a good prompt to how to build a software company without learning Python in about 15 minutes.
That's the velocity of 2026.
Let's recap this stack because we've covered a lot of ground. It starts with the foundation.
Clear thinking and prompting. Remember those frameworks. Task context references. You have to swing the sword with intent.
And the toolkit.
Deep mastery of core tools. Don't collect apps. Master the categories. Your chatbot research, learning, and execution tools.
Then efficiency.
Workflow integration. Kill that context switching. Bring AI into the browser, into your work.
Then leverage.
Agent design. Moving from just inputs to real autonomy. That's system thinking.
And finally, the future.
Open source literacy and building. That's vibe coding. Using natural language to create your reality.
The source has a great line to sum this all up. It says, AI rewards people who build, not people who watch.
That's it. That is a whole philosophy in one sentence.
So here's the call to action for you listening. Don't try to do all of this at once. Start where the friction hurts the most. If you feel slow, Start with your prompting frameworks. If you feel buried in email, look at workflow integration. If you want real leverage, start looking at agents.
Just start somewhere. The gap between the people who use this stuff and the people who don't is only getting wider.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked about AI becoming infrastructure, just fading into the background like the internet.
Yeah.
If that's true, and AI is becoming this invisible layer of our lives, are you building the skills to direct that system? Or are you just becoming a user of someone else's system?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.